So that is why women want to know oftentimes when they have a pregnancy loss, can I do anything differently to impact my fertility and any future pregnancies? I'm Heather Grzych, and this is the Wisdom of the Body podcast. This podcast explores the idea of body intelligence as the real key to learning the knowledge of life, or what we call Ayurveda in the ancient language of Sanskrit. We do that by connecting with today's creative leaders and experts who will help you listen to your body, trust your gut, and live in deeper harmony with nature. Come join me as we unlock the golden door to clear, direct perception and become very deep listeners. You can find the Wisdom of the Body podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Stitcher. You can also follow us by joining my email at heathergrzych.com or on Instagram at heathergrzych. I know you're going to love this podcast, so take a second right now to subscribe. Welcome to the Wisdom of the Body, where we explore important topics that touch our health and our lives deeply. I'm your host, Heather Grzych, and today we're going to delve into a subject that requires a lot of sensitivity and a lot of understanding: pregnancy loss. A lot of people have been through this. A lot of people don't talk about it, but it's super common. It's also known as miscarriage. So pregnancy loss, miscarriage is a few ways to say it. It's a very challenging experience for people to go through, and it affects so many individuals and couples around the world, actually. It's essential to recognize that it's an emotional and it's a physical and a mental toll on an individual when they go through it. And they need to figure out how to move forward after going through an event like this. So in today's episode, we'll be discussing the significance of rejuvenation after pregnancy loss and emphasizing the need for self-care and compassion and healing on this journey. A lot of women contact me right after they've had a loss because they're looking for more support. Women really need support when they're going through this. They need guidance, not just physical, but also mental and emotional. They won't feel good physically, and there are many emotions that will come. And when your body doesn't feel good and when your emotions are involved, there's no way that your mind's going to be doing well at that point either. So it's a multidimensional impact on a person. And maybe this is why oftentimes people seek complementary providers to help them move forward. So not only are they looking for support, they're looking for answers. Because when a woman experiences a pregnancy loss, she may want to have some questions answered. For example, why did this happen? Did I do anything wrong? They might want to know, is it my hormones or my eggs or my overall body? Is it something in my health history? Are there any tests I should have done? Now, a lot of these questions go through the head, but they're also very painful questions to deal with. And I'll get to that in a minute. Women all too often blame themselves when they have a miscarriage, but there are actually many reasons why a fetus may not be able to grow well. It could be something to do with the father. There could be things that are completely outside a woman's control and how things are affecting her body. It actually could be completely out of her control in many cases. So many doctors are very supportive during this time, and they're very wonderful about telling a pregnant woman that it's not her fault. But what's weird about being told that it's not our fault is that, while it's comforting to hear, it also gives us a sense that we have absolutely no control over it. And that can be very unsettling to hear when you've been through something traumatizing and then you feel like you have no control over it. So that is why women want to know oftentimes when they have a pregnancy loss, can I do anything differently to impact my fertility and any future pregnancies? A doctor, for example, may not initiate any battery of tests after the woman has a loss. The woman may actually need to ask more questions than she expects to, and she may have to advocate for finding answers to that. if you're going to a fertility clinic for assisted reproductive technologies like IVF or IUI, then your doctors may be more proactive about doing more evaluations because they're going to need to know more if they're going to try to help you get pregnant again. Whereas your regular doctor may not dig as far. And again, this is general. This is not, you may have very different experiences with your doctors, but there's more curiosity on the part of a fertility clinic because if they're going to try to help you get pregnant again, they need to understand what happened so that they can modulate different hormonal levels or, understand certain things going on inside the uterus, et cetera, et cetera. Are these losses, though, are they written in the stars and there's just simply nothing we can do about it? I think it can be a comforting feeling to think about that, that we don't have any say in it. But when you want to try again, oftentimes, a lot of women get scared actually to try again because they don't want that to happen again. Sometimes there are genetic factors or things from the past that are influencing what's happening now. But sometimes there are actually things going on in your day-to-day life that are contributing to some sort of imbalance within you and some things that you could actually influence. So it could be your thyroid, or maybe it's an overactive immune response, or maybe there's a hormonal imbalance that's related to some dietary factors, or perhaps there's like a structural abnormality in the uterus or another part of the body, or maybe there's some other chronic health problem that is impacting some ability for your body to be able to properly deliver nutrients and material to the child, the fetus. Many things you can shift. And I've seen some incredible changes happen with people when they put a lot of attention on their health and they have the right guidance. On the other hand, a lot of women will check out temporarily as they're processing all the emotions about the loss, because sometimes dealing with that, plus trying to really deeply look at what they're doing in their life, like, oh, do I have to change my diet? Do I have to sleep differently? Whatever. When you think about making changes to your daily routine, that can stress some people out. And dealing with that while they're already going through something difficult is hard. So some women who've suffered a pregnancy loss may want to move right on to trying again. And some of them may benefit from taking a pause, but frankly, who has time for a pause? It's not like people get time off from work when they have a pregnancy loss. You can't take 4 weeks to mourn or grieve, right? Just as an example, to grieve and heal. Most people actually just have to show up and keep doing life. They have to keep going grocery shopping. They have to keep going to the office. They have to do the performance that they were committed to. They have to show up for a meeting. They have to see their patients or whatever it is that they do in their day-to-day. They have to do that even while they're going through so much. And it's delicate. So even for people who want to have a deeper understanding of what's happening, they might be curious and they might be wondering, well, can I do something about this? It's hard. So this is why people need support when they're going through the process, even if they're on a hunt for answers. So I want to talk about the types of recovery needed after a pregnancy loss and offer up a framework for proceeding in the event that you or someone you love has found themselves in this situation. So first, you have to kind of really support the grief process because it can be very overwhelming to have a loss like this. And it's crucial to acknowledge that grief comes with it. And it's when you are healing grief, it's a unique process. Everybody does it differently. So you have to take time to honor your emotions when they come up. And if you're supporting somebody who has experienced a loss, really offering compassionate and empathetic space for that person. So first is just acknowledging that this person's also going to be going through grief. And then there's this physical recovery piece, which probably is what everybody, the physical and the emotional is probably the top two that people think about. There are structures changing in a body. There are things that we're building that are now breaking down and have to come back to the post-pregnancy state of like, I'm a normal non-pregnant body state. So there's a whole bunch of shifts that are taking place in the body. when someone is going through a pregnancy loss, even after, hormone levels can stay elevated for a little bit. So even after there has been a loss, there may be some subtle things that are still happening and shifting in a body. And so recovering on a physical way is actually really important. And people want to know, like, can I exercise? How should I eat right now? Definitely want to be resting, right? Whenever you're going through something difficult, you want to be resting. So you do have to prioritize your self-care, and you can consult with different healthcare professionals for guidance on your physical recovery. Then there's the mental well-being. So this mental part actually can be very long-lasting. It's very common for individuals to experience this range of emotions, like I said, grief, but also sadness or guilt even, or anxiety. These are also things that come up. So seeking support from a mental health professional might be necessary for some people, just maybe for a temporary moment, right? Sometimes you might find it's quite helpful and you want to do it for a really long time. So this can provide a safe space to express your feelings, especially if you're having to like plug through your day to day and you feel like, oh, maybe I'm not really like processing some of the stuff that happened to me. You can kind of create this space to be able to do that. And mental health therapists can be very helpful for that. And I know a lot of people will, seek emotional support in other ways as well, through complementary providers. So it's very important. And there can be fear of even trying to conceive again, like I mentioned. And so this empowerment piece is super important if a woman wants to open herself up to that again. And it can strain your relationships, right? So you want to talk about how it's affecting you and your partner, your family. Sometimes, other people in your family knew and they're affected. So it can have impacts beyond just the woman, right, who's experienced it in her physical body. But our bodies are pretty smart. They build what's needed and they break down what isn't needed. So they do this as a default unless something's getting in their way. So they're always rejuvenating and regenerating. It's a natural process. So this physical rejuvenation piece goes beyond healing. It involves rebuilding a sense of self and hope for the future. So you got to, keep doing the things that bring you joy and purpose in your life. The process that I guide my clients through once the main physical loss happens, which typically involves, doctor's visits and stuff like that, is, you staying whole in your mind and your body and your spirit and your relationships, focusing on setting your routines and your self-care, rebuilding those back up after you've gone through this difficult event, or, looking for different herbal or nutritional support for any shifts that are going on, whether that's hormonal or, some people feel like they've put on extra weight or something like that, or also like aren't sleeping well. There's a lot of things that happen. And then sometimes we do cleansing and rejuvenation activities as necessary with Ayurveda, and always empowerment. Even while we're surrendering to nature, there's a sense of empowerment there. So if you or someone else who you know and love has experienced a pregnancy loss, then approach the situation with empathy and sensitivity and a real open heart, because, sometimes just a simple gesture or a listening ear can make a significant difference when this person's ready to talk about it. And definitely encourage people to seek professional help if needed, and remind them that all their feelings are valid, because it's not an easy thing to go through. A lot of people go through it. Yes, a lot of people get through it, but it still doesn't mean it's easy to go through at the time. So while this time is full of all kind of awful emotions, some women also find themselves with some extra curiosity or wondering if there is more to the story, and they want to be able to get some answers. So, that's a factor here. They want to look a little bit deeper sometimes. Many people, like I said, do go on to have children after a loss or even multiple losses. And I think it's important that you understand that any risks to your health are understood first, because I'm guessing that when you have your baby, you want to be healthy for that baby. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode about the importance of rejuvenation after pregnancy loss. Healing is a personal journey. There is absolutely no timeline for grief. If you or someone you know is going through this challenging experience, reach out for support and remember that you are not alone. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. If you are embarking on a fertility journey and are ready to have your mind blown about what your body is really capable of and how it's impacted by the environment, then check out my book, The Ayurvedic Guide to Fertility. You can actually download the introduction to the book for free on my website at heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, Grzych.com. Read the intro for free and then buy the rest of this fertility enlightening book pretty much anywhere books are sold. You know, I get so excited. I get this kind of goosebump feeling when I get a booking from a new client that I haven't met yet. And I get so excited because I know that somebody has made a decision to go really, really, really deep into their healing. Because I know that Ayurveda is not a quote unquote normal thing that many people have access to, at least not in the United States where I live. So I know that when someone books with me, that they've really made a decision that they want to go deep into their healing. And so you could do that on my website at heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, Grzych.com. You can book me for either a Ayurvedic consultation if you're ready to dive in, or you can also book me for a 15-minute connection call if you're not sure where to go yet. I do have a couple offerings that are not on my website, and we could talk about that. So I look forward to meeting you. Thank you for tuning in and dropping in with us today. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. I really want to hear your feedback. To learn more about my work, visit heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, Grzych.com. And meet me here next time on The Wisdom of the Body.